Ladies and gentlemen, 5 minutes till showtime. Please start walking in and finding your seat in the main room. 5 minutes until showtime at Annual Forum 2022. Please find your way into the main room. Thank you so much, and thank you for attending Annual Forum, presented by Amazon. Just 2 minutes till showtime. We know you're excited to get back out there and network, but there'll be plenty of opportunity for that in our cocktail reception after the main programming. So please, for now, find your seats and get ready for the Annual Forum 2022 presented by Amazon. Good afternoon, guests of SVLG's 2022 Annual Forum presented by Amazon. Please find your way to the seats and get ready for our program. If we could, please welcome to the stage with a big round of applause, Lisa Goshay, SVLG Vice President, Partner Success.
Good afternoon. It's so good to see everybody. My name is Lisa Goshay, Vice President of Partner Success for the Silicon Valley Leadership Group. In addition to the work that I do for the leadership group, I'm proud to say I'm currently serving as the Vice Mayor here in the city of East Palo Alto. I want to first welcome you to our city, and then it is my pleasure to welcome you back in person to our annual forum, presented by Amazon. So thank you, Amazon. To celebrate being able to meet together again, we have an amazing afternoon of programming and networking planned, and you'll hear from a wide range of leaders, including Lieutenant Governor of California and the brain power behind Amazon's groundbreaking Lab 126. We're fortunate to have representatives from all levels of government today, so please help me in welcoming those who are serving our community. We're piloting, it's easy for me to say, a new format for our annual forum this year. Usually it's a larger format. We've decided to make it a little bit smaller so we can have a curated member experience. We welcome your feedback at the end of this program. At the end of some of our discussions, there will be an opportunity to send in some questions. So please keep an eye on the screens, and as the number comes up, please email or text in your questions. We also want to make sure you have an opportunity to connect with each other. So please stick around if you can. There will be a reception that will start at 5 p.m. and everyone should have 2 drink tickets. And if you don't, please come see me. Again, welcome to the program.
"2022, a year of tremendous transition for the world. Our innovation economy at the heart of it, and Silicon Valley Leadership Group driving results on behalf of our members. Creating a groundbreaking partnership with the UNCF to bring more historically black colleges and university graduates to Silicon Valley. Driving passage of legislation to modernize permitting and build more affordable housing in our region. And helping to lead a legislative coalition for sustainable transportation infrastructure that makes it easier to build common sense projects that are good for the environment. Working with our members and state regulators to advance autonomous freight in the Golden State. Leading the fight against new local taxes in our municipalities to keep jobs in Silicon Valley. Helping to secure more than $100 million for climate mitigation in our wetlands. For SVLG, it's about ushering in a new era of corporate citizenship, one that connects our companies and our communities by realizing new opportunities. And after too long apart, it brings us here today for conversations, for collaborations, for our common future. Welcome to SVLG's Annual Forum, presented by Amazon. This year's annual forum would like to thank our thought leader sponsor, Amazon. Thank you from SVLG.
My name is Moises Cano. I am a process assistant for Amazon. The most important thing is for me is my family, and being able to give them everything that they need it's very important for me. And having that college degree definitely, it's always been in the back of my mind. Going through the process of signing up for career choice was the easiest thing I've ever done. Being able to have the place that I work at also pay for my college education, it's a win-win situation, I can say. I've worked in different places for a long time, and it's different. Amazon's different. It's giving me everything that I needed so far. A lot of people ask me, why are you so happy when you come to work? Because I like coming to work. You know, it's not every day that you can say, oh yeah, you know what, I'm happy to go to work. I am happy to go to work at Amazon. And I'm happy that, you know, all the programs that Amazon offers, that I'm able to be happier. Just because my wife loves the fact that I'm going to school. My kids are super excited about me going back to school. So the program, Career Choice, is the only reason I would say I'm in school right now. Nothing else. If Amazon hadn't come up with that program, I'd still be not going to school.
Please welcome CEO of the San Francisco 49ers and SVLG Chair, Jed York.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for being here today. As you heard, I am the proud chair of the Silicon Valley Leadership Group. I am also the husband of a lady named Danielle who said I needed to grow a beard for our Halloween costumes on Saturday. So I apologize for not being cleanly shaven today. In the past year, the Silicon Valley Leadership Group is focused on three key areas of work: business competitiveness, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and sustainability. And our conversation today is going to touch on all of those topics. We're going to kick things off with a keynote conversation on California competitiveness with our Lieutenant Governor, Eleni Kounalakis. We're very, very excited to have the Lieutenant Governor here with us today. She's going to be in a conversation with our CEO, Ahmad Thomas, to discuss how we can promote both inclusive growth and a competitive business climate, which I think are very, very important topics to our entire state and certainly our region. We are honored to have the Lieutenant Governor here today. And now please welcome our Lieutenant Governor and Ahmad to the stage.
Go Niners.
Thank you.
All right. Lieutenant Governor, it's great to see you. Thank you so much for joining us. And thank you, Jed. He's been such a great supporter as our chairman here at SVLG. We'll dive right into some questions about California competitiveness and the business climate here. I think we got a text line as well. If you've got some questions, text them over and we'll ensure that we get to them at the end of our about 20-minute Q&A. So the first question, Lieutenant Governor, is talking about where things are going with the economy in California. You have many business executives here. We follow the volatility that we've seen, clearly a lot of uneven economic indicators. Are we approaching a recession? Is California prepared to weather one if that is the case near or midterm?
Well, Ahmad, first of all, I just want to thank you and everyone at the Silicon Valley Leadership Forum for having me. It's always great to be with this group. I think it's pretty clear that in terms of trade-like organizations, nothing is as impactful as this one here in Silicon Valley.
Well, thank you.
So it's great to be here because whenever I do come, I always learn something from your leadership, from your membership, and so it's wonderful to be here with you. So you're right. I think that it's been clear for some time that the extraordinary economic gains and these super budgets of the last 2 years, these super surpluses, $65 billion 2 years ago, $100 billion last year. And to give you context, the state budget was $300 billion last year. So that's $100 billion of that 300 was surplus money. I mean, these were extraordinary times. But even as the governor and the legislature were programming those funds, at the time there was clear recognition that it wasn't going to last forever. And so when I pieced apart and in my way advocated for elements of it, what was clear is that budget resiliency was the single most important priority of those 2 years of budget surpluses. That means filling the coffers of the rainy day fund, which are now at their statutory limit. It meant that 93% of the spending was one-time spending. It meant that the bond obligations, many of those that could be paid down were, in order to be able to increase our bonding capacity in the state going forward.
That includes pension bonds?
Paying down pensions, extraordinary, tens of billions of dollars above what was statutorily required, because you know we do have statutory requirements for paying down pensions as a result of an initiative several years ago. But even beyond that, the governor and the legislature, and I think I'm looking right at Mark Berman. Hi, Mark. So we have a member of the assembly member here. And by the way, I think I saw Dianne Papin, who was on her way to becoming a member of the assembly here as well. There she is. But there was a real recognition of the importance of investing in our economic strength to be able to weather whatever the storms were. And there's one other critical priority of the programming of those budgets that I should mention, that maybe you in this room were affected, maybe your employees were affected by it, but we spent about $26 billion in efforts to go directly to help working families of California shore up their own finances and help them through the pandemic. So about $26 billion went directly into California households in the form of paying down rent obligations during COVID. I mean, many people had their entire back rent. If they lost their job and they weren't working, they had their entire back rent covered by the state government. The Golden State stimulus funds that went into people's pockets, we've never seen anything like it before, but the state was actually using that budget surplus essentially as a rebate for families who needed it the most. And so by being able to ensure that coming out of COVID, people didn't have all of their savings depleted, but in fact were able to be helped through, that helps as well going into an economic downturn. So what I would say to your question of, we had this big bust and we may be facing a serious downturn, is that from what I saw sitting in my office as Lieutenant Governor and as technically the President of the Senate, was a lot, and frankly, though I'm not an economist, as a member of the Governor's Economic Advisory Council, is a great attention to preparing for a downturn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's certainly, whether it be CEO of Goldman Sachs, Dave Solomon, we've seen other tech leaders come out and speak to the concern about where we might see the economy going near or midterm. What you're sharing is that the sense you've heard in Sacramento is a recognition that's similar.
And action taken during those surplus years. Again, replenishing rainy day fund, making sure California households are able to be resilient. And then we didn't talk about our investment in a clean energy future, but that creates great opportunity in the future as well.
Right. Well, I want to talk about what makes California and Silicon Valley competitive. Then I also want to touch on this Texodus or exodus or withdrawal, or whatever you want to call it, about companies purportedly, or in some cases, leaving the state. But let's take the competitiveness questions. What is the core, or what are the core elements of competitiveness in Silicon Valley or in California in your estimation?
Well, I'd like to just kind of draw the lens back a little on that question. As Lieutenant Governor, I spend a lot of time working in the space of public higher education. And that is something that is, I think, under-recognized in terms of our competitiveness. we are a $3.3 trillion economy, about the size of India. We are 40 million people, the largest state by population in the country. The average of immigration for the United States is 14%, but in California, it's 27%. And as we have, in my words, benefited from the generous immigration policies of the United States over the years, California has opened up our doors to public higher education in our state. So 40 million population, 2.5 million students are enrolled just in public higher education in the state of California. 37% of them are the first in their family to go to college. So this is this massive conveyor belt of talent that has driven the California economy for a very long time through booms and busts, which we've always had in this state. We are different than other states in the United States for a variety of reasons. But this one element of it, in my view, is what always allows us to have a competitive edge, an innovative edge, and continue to recharge our economy regardless of what comes at us.
Right. And I think what's unique for Silicon Valley, and I've heard this even back when you were ambassador of Hungary, the education, when we talk about the research universities here, venture capital, I see the godfather Ken Coleman over there, venture capital and access to venture capital. We talk about the partnerships with our companies through organizations like SVLG. You have all of this coming together that creates an ecosystem, an innovation ecosystem that's very hard to duplicate. Now, I don't believe there's a zero-sum game where we see Austin or Boston or other places across the world doing well. But to this question of companies leaving the state, is that real in your estimation? How are you and other leaders in Sacramento viewing that?
So first of all, thank you for noting, Ahmed, that if the biotech industry in Boston starts to grow, that's not a bad thing for us as Americans, right? We shouldn't say, well, just because there was a period of time that if you were going to be in biotech, you had to be in South San Francisco because that's where the money was and the innovation and all the companies that were pioneering this. I agree. I think that particularly with distance learning or distance working, remote working as well, it was inevitable that some of that would happen. But I really want to be clear. We should absolutely care if companies leave California. We don't want companies to leave, particularly if they don't want to leave because they feel that they're inhibited or that there are too many challenges to be able to stay. So I have an MBA from UC Berkeley, and I do everything I can in my capacity. And I believe that there is housed within, certainly within the administration and GoBiz, the intention to try to help make sure that if companies are having challenges, that we're there to try to help. But I want to say this. What we found when we started looking into this, and we did most certainly 2 years ago, or almost 2 years ago, when we had that kind of rash of announcements, the Charles Schwab announcement, of course, Elon Musk tweeting and all that, we absolutely wanted to look at this and ask these questions because about 1% of California personal income taxpayers, along with large corporations, together cover about half of the California, fill the coffers of our general fund.
Yeah, we got a lot of that in the room here today.
Thank you all very much for your contributions to that. And it's our responsibility, by the way, to make sure that we do invest those dollars in the right way. But what we found is that the single largest driver of people leaving California was the cost of housing. So in May, the housing price, and this is where I come from. I was 18 years working in housing development in Sacramento. In May, our median home price in California peaked at $900,000 for a single family home. I mean, this is just unbelievable. You hear that maybe for the Bay Area and you say, wow, that's a lot. But then you factor in the rest of the state and the parts of the state where you wouldn't expect that prices would have increased that much. $900,000 in May. At around the same time, you're looking at median home prices in Texas and Florida that are in the 300s. So that makes a really, really big difference. And there is no question, if you're following what's going on in the legislature right now, the state is working very hard to advance policies where local governments are still what I call, to use an old term from the Marines, the tip of the spear, but the state can provide the thrust to just get more housing online in our state. That is without question, in my opinion, a big part of the challenge. But I also want to say this, if you moved to Texas 2 years ago and you're looking around and you're like, wait a minute, it's not as beautiful as California. California is stunningly beautiful.
That is a fact.
Okay,
yes.
It is a fact, documented fact. But you're also looking at costs that you might not have expected, like property taxes being very, very high there, whereas California has Prop 13. People don't always necessarily weigh that in. And you may also, say you're a woman executive and you and your husband are starting a family and you have an ectopic pregnancy and you go to the doctor and the doctor may not be able to save your life if your life is threatened. And you have to figure out how you get out real quick in order to be able to get the medical care you need. Not so rosy in places that are advancing policies like that, which, by the way, aren't just contrary to the way that Californians feel about the issue of choice. It's contrary to the way the country feels about choice. And yet you're seeing states that are having these radicalized political movements that are driving for irrational kinds of policies that affect people's lives. So I think all in all, California is looking pretty good. But let me just say again, we cannot take anything for granted. We absolutely must recognize that we are a democracy with a free market economy, and innovation that comes up through competition and a free market is very, very important, not just to the California economy, to the US economy, and to any successful economy.
Well,
Come on,
yeah.
people.
Yeah.
What? Assemblyman Furman is also.
And for my team, if there are any audience questions, please bring them to me. I have 2 more questions for you, Lieutenant Governor. I really appreciate how you framed that, because we believe Silicon Valley is the epicenter of the global economy. We believe our innovation infrastructure is robust, but we also acknowledge that the cost of doing business here and that cost-benefit dynamic is perhaps at the most challenging place it's ever been. And so, as a business executive yourself, many business leaders in the audience, what do you have to say, or what guidance might you give us about the cost of doing business here?
What I would say is that California is different than the rest of the country. We are the 5th largest economy in the world, and evidently there are some numbers coming out we're nipping at Germany's heels. So this is not an ordinary place. And we can't do an apples to apples comparison. Yeah, the cost of business is doing high. Yes, it is incumbent upon us to make sure that hurdles to business that are not useful for very important reasons, whether they're protecting our environment or dealing with the fact that we are #1 in the country for income inequality, and we have more people living at or below the poverty line than most of you might realize. And we're not going to let people not be able to put a roof over their families' heads and food on the table and have those basic needs. And it's a real challenge here. And so it is incumbent upon us as government to be able to make that case and say, look, we're going to do everything we can to give you the best possible workforce through our system of public higher education. We need you to be with us, that we need to take care of our people at the basic level. We are going to invest in our infrastructure. We are going to invest in the economies of the future, which if we have a couple minutes to talk about the green economy and the carbon-free energy future of our state and what we're doing to get there, I'd love to chat about that. But this is a unique place in the world. And so what I always say is, you have a problem that you think is fixable relative to doing business, come to us. My doors are open. GoBiz, the Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development, which is headed up, by the way, by Dee Dee Myers.
Oh, we love Dee Dee.
Okay, so she's been here. She's doing incredible work in this space. And again, I have a vigorously nodding assemblyman here and soon to be assemblywoman here. Talk to them, go to them, give them the support that they need to help make sure that your issues are heard in Sacramento.
Well, thank you. We'll take you up on that, Lieutenant Governor, certainly. And I'll end on a question about innovation and looking forward. The themes today, we're talking about business competitiveness, sustainable and inclusive growth. So if we look at how we can support the next Amazon, the next Google here in Silicon Valley or in California, what comments would you have about how you view that in your role as Lieutenant Governor, as a leader in Sacramento, and also your comments around the clean tech and clean energy economy, how you're supporting that growth?
So, you know, obviously technology spans a whole spectrum, and what the next Amazon or Google needs may be very different than, you know, what the next Bloom Energy needs or the next Netflix needs. But I do just want to underscore what we do in this state with our system of public higher education. The U.S. News and World Report's list of all the top universities in the country, when they list public universities, of the top 10 public universities in the United States of America, California universities occupy 6 of those spots. Oh. So we are really trying to make sure that our people drive the next generation of unicorns and the future of the companies that are most likely to be able to attract venture capital funds. The piece, though, and thank you very much for giving me the floor to talk about this. So I was the United States ambassador to Hungary, and I spent a lot of time working with the Hungarian government and other governments in Europe on the issue of energy security. There's a big battle going on right there. You certainly might have seen that the IRA, which has historic investments by the US government into a carbon-free energy future and combating climate change, was actually not expected to pass. I heard some remarks from a representative of the German government saying this could harm the German economy because it's requiring the onshoring of a lot of the manufacturing that's going to go along with the awarding of all of the grants around the IRA. But you look at the historic investment of the IRA and then you couple it with $54 billion that the California governor and legislature through our budgeting process has allocated for combating climate change and transitioning to a clean energy future. I spent a very large part of my time representing the governor in the state as our representative for international affairs and trade. Everybody is coming here. They want to know who are our companies and how can they either invest in California companies that are going to target the fact that, again, we are the #1 consumer market in the United States, right? That if our 2035 goal of all zero-emission vehicles being sold, have to be sold in our state, people are coming here to meet this market. They know we're serious, and they know that we have laid a foundation for companies to rise up in this space, and also for us to meet their needs by doing things like extending some of the tax credit programs that allowed Tesla to be born here. Couldn't have happened. I mean, Elon Musk is not particularly appreciative, but nobody asked for gratitude, right? What we did was we had tax credit programs for R&D that allowed him to be able to invest in the research and development for Tesla. And then we had rebate programs for people to buy the cars. And then we had a general public that was very interested in doing their part to take advantage of this new technology and not pollute the air, because half of our greenhouse gases come from the transportation sector. That is the perfect storm that helped support or leverage what we could bring to the table to his innovative abilities and the risks that he and the venture capital companies took, that has now led the way in a total transformation of what we're looking at in the transportation sector. That groundwork was just laid in last year's budget and in the budget of the year before. I really encourage you all to look at the opportunities that are being created as a result of those investments. And we are catching the ire of oil companies because they're jacking up our cost of gasoline in this state with these mysterious costs. You know, just for the record, California taxes contribute 26 cents per gallon. That doesn't account for the fact that the cost of gas at the pump in California is in some cases $2, $3 more than some of the other states in the country. So some analysts say that you could expand that 26%, all costs of doing business combined, to about 75 cents. We're still getting a special price. And so we are at a moment where either we are going to transition to the kinds of energy, and by the way, it's not just solar and wind. There are all kinds of other things there's a company down in Southern California that's looking at fusion. There's, you know, advances in battery storage that can help leverage the solar and the wind that's either developed or on its way. But this is a moment where, as a planet, we're either going to do it or we're not. And California, if it happens, it is going to be because of the people in this state taking advantage of the groundwork that the state and federal government are laying to leverage the private sector in order to get us there. So it's really now up to all of you.
Well, I'll use my purview here as moderator in, oh, here we go. Wow, we got a smart audience here. This is, we'll take the first question. How can the state, this is from the audience, how can the state continue to support innovators during an economic downturn?
Well, so I mentioned, again, this, 2 years of extraordinary budget surpluses and what those priorities are, and the fact that 93% is one-time spending. One-time spending is actually spent over a little bit longer period of time. And the laying of that foundation for innovation and tax rebates, particularly for California companies, I think that is the best way that we can help, is essentially just what I said. But again, also, if there are people, and we sometimes see, if they're feeling like this isn't the time to start their business, it's a time to go back to school. And I spent a lot of my time trying to figure out how can we make sure that our community colleges are very much open for reskilling and job skilling, and making sure that young innovators who want to go back and get more skills can do that, and frankly, do it tuition free.
Well, this will be our last question. I don't know if it's my staff who planted this or maybe our assembly member over here, but I'll go ahead and read it. Lieutenant Governor, do you think the Bay Area receives its fair share of funding for climate, public health, and other goods and service needs.
Give me thumbs up, thumbs down, or somewhere in the middle. What's your answer, Mark? We should always have more.
Yeah, but no,
That's the answer.
we're thumbs down. We need more.
This is a very special place in the world. And when I was in Hungary, gosh, it was a long time ago now. I left, finished my posting 9 years ago, and everywhere I went, I went to Afghanistan several times when I was serving overseas. I was down in Kosovo and Sarajevo, and of course would spend a lot of time elsewhere in Europe and in Central Europe. And everybody wanted to know, how can we have a Silicon Valley here? You can't just snap your fingers. It's a lot of factors that have come together to create this extremely special place and very important place. And so making sure, first and foremost, that we know what your issues are, that we know what your challenges are, and that we have that expertise from you carried back to the state level so that we can respond is very important. Is Gina Pappen here too? Yeah, is Gina, so Gina Pappen on Millbrae City Council is also on the Regional Transportation Authority, and she will jump up and down and yell, more money, more resources for our transportation infrastructure in this region. But I think what she'd also tell you is that it's really important that all these different authorities and regional transportation agencies work together more carefully so that the resources that we do have are better programmed in order to be able to, I want to say my one transportation story. I certainly knew enough to know how important California trade and investment is in California, but when I took this portfolio on for the governor, I was trying to quantify how important trade and investment is to our state, and that 1 out of 5 California jobs comes from foreign direct investment, international trade, and tourism. That we have one of the busiest land border crossings in the world between California and Mexico. I'm actually going to Mexico City tomorrow. On Monday, we're signing a cost-sharing agreement for another border crossing at Otay Mesa 2. And then on Tuesday, I'll be with Pete Buttigieg on our border, talking about the federal investment in those border crossings, because it is so important to our economy and the US economy. 40% of all the containerized goods coming in to the United States come through the Port of Long Beach and Los Angeles, not to mention, of course, our ports up here in Northern California. And my favorite trade statistic of all is that every year through the Port of Hueneme, who most people up north have never even heard of, every year 3.3 billion bananas come through the Port of Hueneme. That is 10 bananas for every man, woman, and child in the United States of America. Somebody once said, if you have a banana west of the Mississippi, came through the Port of Hueneme.
Yeah.
But the logistics, the manufacturing, California is #1 in manufacturing. The warehousing operations that we see in the Inland Empire in Southern California, we are a powerhouse economy in this state. But Silicon Valley is the brain trust of innovation. And what I would actually like to leave you with, because now I see the numbers are going up instead of down, what I would really like to leave you all with is, technology is changing absolutely everything, touching all of our lives, not just how we work and how we live, but what we think of ourselves as human beings. And just as we have done our part to lay this foundation for the next wave through an economic downturn, because that was one-time spending sitting in all these coffers, along with the IRA, to give you the ability to leverage this state's investment, taxpayers' investment toward innovation, that you also think long-term of what our societies are going to look like. You know, I think I saw Peter Thiel's trying to get dual citizenship now with Malta. Is that right? It's a beautiful place, 500,000 people. But the fact of the matter is that America has always been the place that people come to in order to be safe, in order to be able to live a life without fear. And I would, I guess, leave you with the thought of challenging all of you to think about what happens here that allows all of us in this beautiful state of California, from Greece or from anywhere else in the world that your parents, your family may have come from, because we are a majority-minority state in the state of California. What are we going to be able to do now and in the future in order to continue to be the safe haven that we are for generations of people, and to be able to provide security, stability, and of course, incredible opportunity.
Well, let's give a round of applause. What a wonderful closing. And thank you so much, Lieutenant Governor. Please see us, please see our leaders in the audience as partners to support your important work. Thank you.
Thank you, Ahmed.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody.
Hi, I'm Vince Rocha, Vice President of Housing and Community Development here at the Silicon Valley Leadership Group. And today we're here in Millbrae at a wonderful mixed-use construction site next to the BART station. It's no secret that for decades, Silicon Valley has led the growth of the American economy. Driving that growth is our amazing and talented workforce. Those people need a place to work, live, and thrive. But right now, California has a 3.5 million unit housing shortage. That lack of affordable and market rate housing is one of the most critical challenges to California's business competitiveness, which is why SVLG is co-sponsoring AB 2234. It's a major new housing bill that we are co-sponsoring with the Housing Action Coalition that is authored by Assembly members Robert Rivas and Tim Grayson. This bill modernizes our residential building process and reduces delays. To get a real-world development perspective, you have to talk to someone building right now. And for that, we've come to a construction site to talk to Republic Urban Properties President Michael Van Avery.
This would be the kitchen. You're standing in the kitchen right here. So this is the kitchen. This is your, what I would say your family living area.
My name is Michael Van Avery. I'm the president and CEO of Republic Urban Properties out of San Jose, California. My first development was in 1996, and it was the Stoll Orchard working for Citation Homes, where I had the pleasure of developing 90 single-family homes and restoring an old barn, which was part of the project. Millbrae at Gateway Station has 400 total units, of which 320 are market rate and 20% are affordable for very low and low income veterans here in San Mateo County. The Gateway project also has 164 unit key Marriott Residence Inn, along with a 150,000 square foot office with 44,000 square feet of mixed use retail, one of the largest projects here in the Bay Area. It's right here at the BART station in Millbrae, California, with adjacency to San Francisco International and 16 miles south of downtown San Francisco.
Michael, tell me, what are the challenges here in Silicon Valley when it comes to residential permitting?
Well, the challenges for residential permitting are obviously timelines. You know, from start to finish, if you're planning less than 3 years, you're kidding yourself. It takes a while because California is complex. We are seeing a little bit more online use now because of COVID, so I think, the unintended consequences of permit online has helped, but we are still seeing struggles for government to keep up.
So moving with that online permitting, how's that helping or hurting affordable housing? How are we getting more of that production online?
I think it's really useful, especially in the beginning and the final stages where you can submit, construction drawings. I think the front end of the business, though, for zoning and general plan changes, still a little bit of a struggle, and government's still trying to work with it. But clearly we were trending in that direction pre-COVID, and now I think it's the way we do business post-COVID going forward.
In terms of being able to plan and build and deliver affordable housing, how much do timelines really matter, having certainty in your business as you try to deliver this product?
When you're linked to offsite affordability, as the case here, making sure you hit the tax credit rounds on time and that you have all your permits in place, along as much possible gap equity financing as possible, is critical. So I'd say the timelines for affordable housing, you better meet your mark, because if not, the state's not going to give you the money.
So you're telling me the funding really is tied to your ability to deliver on time?
Absolutely, and that means that local government, the developer, the state, and everybody needs to be on the same page, and that's not easy, but it's possible. A more efficient permitting process would allow for plan checks to happen sooner on the back end of the permitting process. In addition, having inspections done a lot faster, which will translate into a faster building cycle and ultimately occupancy for that development. At best, permitting that's expedited on the back end of the process could save anywhere from 6 months to a year. That's valuable time. And that will get more affordable housing into the marketplace, which really is what we're all trying to accomplish here in California.
And now Jason Baker, Senior Vice President, Infrastructure and Regional Partnerships for SVLG.
Hi, I am Jason Baker, Senior Vice President of Infrastructure and Regional Partnerships, and I'm proud to report that 3 weeks ago, Governor Newsom signed AB 2234 into law. Yeah, it's exciting and it matters. This bill represents not just SVLG's commitment to expanding our competitiveness in the region, but it signifies a fresh approach to how the new SVLG will be tackling our region's toughest challenges, with our leading innovation economy businesses working in partnership with legislative leaders, housing advocates, and developers, with my team, Vince Rocha, leading the way. We'll keep working to develop and promote common sense solutions for seemingly intractable problems, like our convoluted residential permitting process. It's also why we co-sponsored work to build consensus and pass the recently signed SB 922, a sustainable transportation infrastructure bill that modifies and extends CEQA streamlining to make it easier to build, again, common sense projects that are good for the environment, projects that help and strengthen our communities, all at a lower cost. None of this would happen without our amazing partners and champions. On AB 2234, we're proud to have worked alongside Assembly Members Rivas and Grayson, as well as with our partners at the Housing Action Coalition. And on SB 922, with Senator Scott Wiener, his terrific staff who authored and worked tirelessly on this bill, as well as our partners at the California Transit Association, our co-sponsors at SPUR, the Bay Area Council, and LA Metro. Housing and greener transportation infrastructure are not only vital to strengthening the region's business competitiveness, but also to ensuring a more equitable future for Silicon Valley. It's work that matters, and it's work that we couldn't do without support from you, our members. Thank you.
We're trying to build the most sustainable transportation fleet in the world. So 100,000 units, that's a large volume of vehicles. We have to get this right.
Oh, wow.
We have an opportunity to really set the standard.
It's hard to not notice the changes around you.
We're at an inflection point in human history where our actions are shifting and fundamentally changing the nature of what this planet feels like to live in. So we're changing the climate. The time we have to make that shift is right now.
When you talk about Amazon's delivery fleet, why wouldn't we go electric? And we thought if we took Amazon's package delivery know-how and Rivian's vehicle expertise, and we worked backwards from the needs of the driver, what could we do? It needs to be the most functional, the highest performing, the safest.
Everything you see on the vehicle is a decision.
We'll mill out the clay, we'll see it in full size, we'll color it up, make it look like a real car, and it gives us a quick visual representation of what the vehicle is going to look like for production.
When we succeed, if we displace those gasoline vehicles with an electric vehicle, it'd be a large step forward in making our package delivery business sustainable, and it has a positive impact on the environment that's taking a leading role in sustainability.
Which is incredible for the planet. It's a good thing. Raising the bar will drive others to become more efficient. It's going to be an iconic vehicle.
Please welcome Kristen Brown, Director of Government Relations for SVLG.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Kristen Brown. I'm Director of Local and Regional Government Relations at SVLG and co-lead of our Women's Leadership Series. I'm proud to introduce our next video, an address from Governor Gavin Newsom. He discusses housing, sustainability, and inclusive growth that works for everyone in California, as well as the challenges and solutions that we face in the Valley and throughout the state. He was unable to join us today, but we are proud that he has provided a short message for everyone here at today's SVLG Annual Forum. Let's hear the governor's address.
Hey everybody, it's Governor Gavin Newsom here, and we're all here to discuss Silicon Valley's most pressing issues, one which goes well beyond the Valley and is, of course, the paramount challenge in our state, and that's housing affordability. You know, in the state, we're finally making some real progress. We're cutting through red tape, streamlining housing development, and putting ourselves on track. This is important, putting ourselves on track for our largest single calendar year of new housing since 2006. But we also are very sober, humbled by the challenges that we face. We've got to do a lot more, and we need to ensure in that stead to advance our housing supply policies in a way that embrace an environmental mindset. Environmental regulations need to work hand in hand, not against each other, with our housing goals and housing policies as we get on pace to do more that this moment calls for, and that's creating and developing more housing. Climate change, of course, spares no one, costing us money, safety, increasingly our peace of mind. So we have to act, you know that, we all have to act boldly, more decisively, and that's where you come in. Silicon Valley is our innovation hub. You drive new developments, new ideas, but particularly in sustainability. In an effort to, well, tackle this climate crisis and deliver economic opportunity for all, you're essential in advancing those twin goals. And the state has your back. And so I just want to thank you for all that you've done to support us. Speaking of having our back, your advocacy and support this year helped us land a $54 billion climate package. $54 billion. Few nations in the world have made this kind of commitment to invest in low carbon green growth. $10 billion, by the way, of that $54 billion goes specifically for EV infrastructure and charging infrastructure more broadly. We're going to phase out the sale of new gas-powered cars. And I don't know if you just saw, we just announced 17.7% of all new car sales already are alternative fuel vehicles. California is leading the way, leading the world in accelerating our climate transition, including, by the way, 90% goal to have clean energy by 2035. These actions build on a long track record of your advocacy and your work. And achieving these goals is something we've done, and we make this point, you make this point all the time, as we grow our economy. We're not doing one at the sacrifice of the other. So we need to push ourselves to continue to stay on the leading and cutting edge. This is one of the greatest economic opportunities of our lifetime, and we want to dominate in this space. California is set up for success, but we need your innovative leadership. We need your entrepreneurial mindset. We need your talent, your skills, your funding, and more importantly, your ongoing support and motivation. And it's people and organizations like yours that have helped create the future that all of us are experiencing and enjoying here in the state of California. We say this all the time. Future happens here first. So thank you for embracing optimistically our collective future. And I hope you all have a great rest of your forum. Take care, everybody.
Please welcome Tim McCray, Senior Vice President, Climate for SVLG.
Hi, I'm Tim McCray, and it's my privilege to introduce the next panel discussion. Over the next 40 minutes, you'll hear from a group of leaders working to make sure their businesses are at the forefront of the sustainability movement. Don't forget to text your questions for the Q&A portion to the number on the screen. Our first panelist, Pasquale Romano, is the president and CEO of ChargePoint. ChargePoint is the largest online network of independently owned EV charging stations, of which they own and operate hundreds of thousands of them. Joining him is Raul Mulpiri, CEO of View. As one of the leading companies designing and manufacturing smart glass, View helps homes and businesses cut down on energy costs and consumption. Rounding out the panel is Papia Gamblin, Managing Director of State and Local Government Affairs at United Airlines. In her role, she helps one of the world's largest airline companies reach its ambitious sustainability goals, which includes aiming to be 100% green by 2050. Moderating our panel is Laura Wilkinson, SVP and Head of Communications for the Leadership Group. Over her career, she's managed communications for politicians, leading policy think tanks, and Fortune 500 companies. Please join me in welcoming our panelists.
Thanks so much, Tim, and good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here this afternoon. So let's get right to it. It's 2022. We know the impacts of climate change have already arrived, certainly here in California. We've unfortunately become all too familiar with the headlines of climate disasters, but there's also good news. In the last 12 months, we've seen passage of transformative legislation in Washington, including the Inflation Reduction Act, the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act, and the CHIPS Act, all against a backdrop of private sector innovation that's been at the forefront of climate action for more than a decade, harnessing the power of low carbon and zero emissions technology solutions to create new markets and a new economic dynamism. In short, this is our sustainability moment this year, with the potential to drive the future of an entire generation, which is why I'm so glad to have this panel with us this afternoon. We'll be hearing from leaders in aviation, charging infrastructure, and smart buildings who can really help us understand what we have in front of us in terms of this tremendous market opportunity and the role that policy and regulatory frameworks can play in ensuring that we continue to build on this momentum. So let's get to it. Pasquale, we'll start with you. At ChargePoint, you're at the forefront of a transformation in the transportation sector, which is, we know, has been historically a big part of the problem, but it's really exciting to see the transformation around electrification. We're seeing tremendous amounts of EVs hitting the road, new, used fleets. We know that the demand is hot. We also know that there's a rollout right now of a charging infrastructure nationwide. So help us think through how do we make sure that this is all happening in the right cadence, and how do we think about the role that the private sector is playing, sort of juxtaposed against these billions of infrastructure dollars that are coming from the federal government to invest in the infrastructure and also to spur adoption with the vehicle tax credit.
Wow, a lot to unpack. How many hours we have? So first of all, thanks for having us. We've been doing this for 15 years at ChargePoint, so it's been a labor of love for a long time. But I think, as you said, it's starting to it's top of mind now for everybody, which is great, because that's the biggest start is realization and awareness and conversation. And I think one of the most important things that overarches everything that you asked is that from a private sector perspective, transportation fueling, which is what we're in, has to be carried by the private sector because it's too expensive a burden for any number of governments to do. And also, there's a vibrancy in terms of connecting charging infrastructure with the businesses that have parking lots where people are trying to use the charging, because every consumer or fleet driver is a customer or an employee of that business that has the chargers in their parking lot. So what's key there, I think, first of all, is to make sure that any business models that are out there are pressure tested for long-term standalone viability. Mm-hmm. Because the last thing you want to do is have what now looks like a large amount of money coming in from the Inflation Reduction Act and Infrastructure Bill and other state and local, sort of California's has led the way for years. state programs. And what that can do if you're not careful, it can mask fragility. Solar went through this, right? You get some policy changes that can happen abruptly, funding changes that can happen abruptly, and suddenly business models that look like they were going to work don't work anymore. And so you can't have that with fueling transportation. And so what we've been very mindful of over 15 years is, first of all, how do we get businesses to individually embrace it? Headline is ChargePoint. You may think we own chargers and sell power. We don't own a single charger that you see with a ChargePoint label on it. The businesses that have those parking lots out there pay us for that equipment, pay us to maintain it, and also pay us an annual subscription to keep it on our network. The reason that's pretty sustainable is each business essentially is it's like we're crowdfunding all the infrastructure necessary for our business, and for the portion of it that our business serves, to fuel all these vehicles on the passenger car and fleet side. If to make the business pencil, I needed those things when they ran out, or when the magnitude of the transportation problem, we're early, slightly greater than 1% penetration basically in the US fleet at large of vehicles. When that gets to 5, 10, 15%, the amount of funding that's sitting in the infrastructure bill and Inflation Reduction Act, et cetera, is going to pale in comparison to the need. And so we don't want to cantilever out on a whole bunch of dependencies that suddenly can't sustain that infrastructure. So our view is the retail and convenience sector has to embrace it, just like they have gasoline for long haul driving. Now, you're not going to go to something that looks like a gas station to charge your car anymore when you own an electric vehicle, because electricity is everywhere. So that means it's going to be at home, it's going to be at your apartment and condominiums. Headline, there's a lot of work being done there to make sure that people that live in apartments and condominiums can have access to charging. And then you've got workplace, then you've got public and private parking, cities and towns, long haul, all the fleet segments, et cetera. And if in totality, in all these different verticals, you can come up with a model that excites the business and that pencils for companies like us and the business, and it doesn't have to pencil from a direct profit on power. It could pencil on some secondary monetization thing, whatever. Life has more imagination than we do. Then what you wind up with is a vibrant, healthy, diffuse fueling infrastructure, and you want it diffuse because you can't wipe it out with one policy change, one business decides to change direction, et cetera. So you don't want the vulnerability.
Right. So I've heard you say it's sort of thinking about it both from a 20-year horizon, but also about making sure that when you think about that charging infrastructure, it's about sort of just skating ahead of the puck a little bit, right? So it's making sure that you're addressing those concerns around so-called range anxiety, or making sure that you're charging the vehicles that are here today and anticipating kind of what's coming.
Yeah, what's interesting is there really isn't a range anxiety. It's something that is something. It's like an echo from the past that doesn't really exist anymore. There's more demand than there is supply for vehicles, both in fleet and passenger cars. That's going to persist for a very long time. And what's a corollary to that, and what you and I talked about in prep for this was, it's a shame that we're waking up so late to the climate problems that we have now. If we had started earlier, we'd be done by now, but we didn't start early enough. But that doesn't mean that because now we have the sheer political will and the will of the population on the planet to fix this, that we can do it in 5 years. Because there just isn't the production capacity, and there won't be, to manufacture enough vehicles. We sell, call it 15 million vehicles a year in the United States to consumers. If you went to every auto OEM in the world and you said, I want you to put in 10x the production capacity you have now so we can convince all consumers to go out and just swap their car out at their next available purchase, so within 5 years this is all over, they would laugh at you. They would be like, wait a minute, okay, so you want me to have 10x the factories, 10x the union employees, 10x the supply chain commitments, and then when it's all said and done in 5 years, I go back to normal replacement cycle, or no. Right. Okay, more importantly, it would take so long, it would take so much capital, it was just impractical. So we're stuck with a 20-year cycle, and I don't like it. No one likes it, but we're stuck with a 20-year cycle. And so putting in all the charging infrastructure for a point in time that's 20 years from now, that's craziness. You just wouldn't do that because all the business would be like, well, where's all the use? There's no utilization. Why did I do this? And then you would have things falling into disrepair, and you would have a tremendous amount of stranded assets, I think. So this has just got to build along with the penetration of vehicles.
Great, thanks. Rao, I think speaking about another sort of industry that has really been kind of overlooked or hasn't been, that is still also in this transition is sort of buildings and sort of dumb buildings and the transition to smart buildings. You run a smart a smart window company. We know that the Inflation Reduction Act includes a 30 to 50% tax credit for energy saving smart windows. How is that really helping to catalyze these more efficient workplaces? And help us understand what is that market opportunity as companies are looking at sort of thinking about adopting low emission standards for their buildings as part of this triple bottom line mentality?
Yeah, that is a couple of good questions. But before I jump in, how many of you have experienced a smart window? Look at that, 2. And one works for View and the other is a close friend of mine. So, my grandfather told me a story growing up. He had a BA in the old British India. And he told me a story about and this just sparked when only 2 people raised your hands. There's a British shoe company called Bata. Shiva, you grew up with it. And we all had Bata shoes growing up in India. And the story was the British Bata shoe company sent 2 executives to Africa and said, go study the African shoe market. The first executive came back and said, no one wears shoes. There's no market for Bata. So you can imagine the second executive came back and said, no one wears shoes. There's a tremendous market opportunity for it. So I see market opportunity everywhere. Call me an optimist or an entrepreneur or a Silicon Valley crazy person. So as to View is also actually a 15-year company. So these are long journeys when you touch infrastructure. I got into this in 2008. Shiva was a little bit ahead of me building solar at the time, and now he's making disk drives and memory. But it takes a long time to build these businesses. It takes a long time to build the basic technology, then the infrastructure, and then scale it. And we've been at it for a long time. A lot of technology. We're now about 1,400 patents and growing. So it's deep, deep tech, full stack. So what's a smart window, since most of you have not experienced it? It's a window the way it should be. So if you think about your day-to-day window in your home or office or at the airport, it's only there for bringing light and giving you views. So what a smart window does is it controls glare and heat. You eliminate blinds and shades, those things that nobody likes. And by the way, the blinds are the only product that I have ever known about that are named after a known human handicap. That's how dumb they are. Think about that. You can't think of another product that's named like that, but yet we consume it. And it brings you natural light and views all the time. And the benefit of that is obviously sustainable. That's why I'm on this panel. We save about 20% of the energy compared to all other alternatives if you're building a new building. It saves about 30% of the building energy if you're retrofitting them into an old building with single pane windows or something like that. Importantly, it reduces the peak load, that very expensive, dirty peak power that we have to bring on just for those few hours in the summer on the hottest day because we all want to run our air conditioners. That's precisely when it reduces the load. So it has massive societal benefits. Secondly, it's highly experiential. The notion of UX is kind of native to us in tech, but UX is non-existent in buildings. People build buildings like monuments. Even our homes, people describe them as monuments. And they had vestiges all the way back to pyramids and Taj Mahal, and architects still describe them as monuments. Cityscapes are described that way. But the user is completely forgotten. And it's actually an industry where the gap between the buyer and the user is vast, right? The person that decides on the design is rarely the user, and certainly that poor user never gets to choose the window. In most buildings, airports, commercial buildings, hospitals, even in our homes. So UX is something we're working on. And then the third one is health. One of the biggest benefits of a smart window is you have lower eye strain, lower headaches, lower depression. better sleep because our circadian rhythm is better adjusted. So there's like these multi-pronged benefits of having a smart window. Many of them have been known, not many of them have been brought to the forefront, but the fundamental reason these are not everywhere is, technology is hard. It's similar to electric cars. I don't know if you know, but electric cars are 150-year-old technology. In fact, in the year 1900, there were more electric cars than internal combustion engine cars on the road, but it's not until recently that you've been able to scale it up. Similarly, smart window technology has been around for 60 years. The early patents go back to the 60s. It's not until we came around that we found a way to find the right material system that's durable, that scales, that's pleasant to the eye, and of course, that's affordable. So to answer your question on the Inflation Reduction Act, we're one of those companies in clean tech or broadly in the energy infrastructure that has built itself over the last 15 years. $2 billion of private investment has gone into our company with no incentives, right? It's not like solar or wind or biofuels. We've been kind of lonely in this journey, and we've been discussing and educating the Department of Energy, Department of Commerce, the White House, and then of course the legislature, and recently now the smart windows are included. What we did in this is we've commercially built the value proposition for the window based on the benefits I mentioned. We eliminate blinds, so that saves some money. We reduce energy, so that saves some money. But importantly, we've been selling it as kind of a premium product that enables better health, better productivity. And as a result, we're at Google, we're at Amazon, we're at Microsoft, we're at Regeneron, we're at all the big tech companies and their campuses, and now we're doing big airports. So while you thought you didn't experience it, okay, let me ask you, how many of you have flown out of SFO Terminal 1, not United, in the last 2 years? Okay. You've experienced the smart window. That entire terminal is smart windows, except it's hidden. You won't know it. You'll just know that it was comfortable. It's kind of like air conditioning. You don't even notice it when it's working well. So Terminal 1 has it, soon Terminal 3.
Yes.
Okay. So the Inflation Reduction Act, what they basically did, Congress put us into the same tax credit as what's currently available for solar, because DOE actually wrote a white paper and that said the smart windows produce negawatts with an N compared to megawatts with an M for solar panels, and that it has dollar to dollar same benefit as a solar panel. So as a result, we qualify for a base 30% tax credit, for the energy credit. We have a 10% incremental credit for a domestic manufacturing credit because we are a domestic manufacturer. And then there's another 10% if you're in the energy community or you build on a brownfield site. So if somebody got rid of a gas station and they built an apartment complex there, they get up to 50% of the credit. As a result, at the 40% level, the entire premium of the smart window goes away, and the cost of the smart window is now same as a dumb window, okay? And you no longer need to use blinds. So think about that. To your question on offices and corporate campuses, obviously everyone wants to build the most experiential office. Everyone's trying every which way to bring their employees back to work. All of us have that same challenge. And so having an experiential office, having an office that's sustainable, and especially a place where your employees can come and be healthier than they would be at home, that's a plus. So a lot of corporate campuses we're doing that are both owned by companies as well as build-to-suits and by extension the spec buildings that developers build. That sector is a little bit slower right now, as you know, but the multifamily sector is growing for us quite rapidly. So, I mean, every window should be smart, and a window that saves energy, makes you healthy, makes you feel better. Why wouldn't you do it if it costs the same money?
Thank you. And I want to make sure that we, Papia, hear from you. As Rao was just saying, obviously you're with United, and the aviation industry is also going through a massive transformation. We know that the UN agency, the ICAO, has set a goal of net zero emissions by 2050. Your company has set a goal as well for 100% by 2050. The company has also recently purchased a number of electric air taxis. And so now, we're seeing this transition. But we know that, transatlantic electric air is some way off to try to pencil it out. Help us understand kind of where we are with the market and what United is doing.
Thank you. So, as you mentioned, trying to reach that goal of net zero emissions, we want to reach half that goal by 2035 and then 2050. It's really about investments and short-term investments, long-term investments. And we have a subsidiary within United Ventures. It's a fund, and we invest in startups. So that's really the way that we've strategized around finding those technologies that are going to really help the aviation industry and advance United's agenda. So what kind of advances are we looking at? Those air taxis, you're right, they have a 60-mile radius to be able to travel 150 miles per hour. Those particular air taxis are projected to provide 50% emission reductions compared to a traditional vehicle. So, that sort of technology, all the way to what we're looking at is sustainable aviation fuel. And I know we're going to talk a little bit more about that, but that's really the key, is identifying a variety of different technologies, hydrogen engines, boom supersonic, where you're going to be able to fly from SFO to Tokyo in less than 6 hours, and it'll operate on sustainable aviation fuel. I would be remiss to mention that these technologies that we are investing in, really United will benefit, but it'll change the way the industry is operating today. And United really wants to be a leader in that space.
Great, thank you. So I think we've got about 5 more minutes for our prepared questions, and then we'll turn it over to audience questions. So we'll try to do a little bit of a popcorn lightning round here. So you mentioned briefly, Pasquale, about sort of the sheer number of cars, EVs, that are coming on the road. Are we ready? Are we, help us understand can we be ready for the vehicles that are coming? We know here in California, Governor Newsom has set the goal of, stopping the sale of gas-powered vehicles in 2030.
Yep.
We're less than 10 years out for that. I know you've talked about this as sort of a 20-year transformation. Where are we, and are we ready?
Yeah, so the bands that you see, I think it's 2035. So I'm a big fan of the ban on ICE sales, but the thing that most people miss in that is, given if you take 15-ish million cars in the US that are sold a year and you divide it into 280 million, you get a number around 19 years, and that's if 100% of cars sold tomorrow were electric. So there's a long tail. I think in the later years, post 2030, or as you approach 2035, you start to get a residual value squeeze on existing ICE vehicles. So unless there's an application that really demands it, you'll start to see some early exits as you're glide sloping into 2035 and beyond. And right now we're at a point where not 100% of new car sales we're pretty far away from 100% of new car sales. So that's kind of how it'll shape. But the head fake is when we get to 100% of new car sales, we're far away from 100% of cars on the road being electric. Right. So to give you are we ready? Our growth rate has been in the 20 to 30% range quarter over quarter for a while, and we don't see that ending. Okay, so if you're growing at that rate and you're a charging infrastructure company and our market share's holding, so if you're growing at that rate and you're able to keep up from a supply chain perspective on the hardware side and on the software side scale at which we have been, we think that the charging infrastructure can keep up. What I'm personally concerned with is less can we keep up and can the auto industry keep up. What I start worrying about are critical supply chain elements on the auto side. So I'm worried about the metals involved in making batteries. Most are plentiful in the Earth's crust, aside from a few. But we're not. We need to be really mindful of how long it takes to develop capacity in raw materials. Now that's a conversation for the auto industry and such. It's being talked about a lot, but I think that's important. And then I think we have some really interesting challenges labor-wise, a happy problem. You can't put charging infrastructure in, you can't put Rouse products in, you can't put a lot of products in without distributed labor. I can't fly someone from Miami to put in a window or a charger in Seattle.
I can, though.
You can. Actually, wait a
I
minute.
can take that care
Wait a
of
minute, we can.
Got you covered.
Okay, I didn't realize this. We have the solution right here. You heard it first. We're going to air taxi the labor.
At supersonic speeds.
At supersonic speeds. By the way, please, I know you're going to fly out of San Francisco, but can you put some boom flights out of San Jose for us poor people down here?
Gotcha.
At any rate, so what's interesting is we will eventually have an electrical contractor's labor shortage if we're not careful, because you have two people here, she's going to fly the labor around, but two people here that are highly dependent on trades to do all this retrofitting that we need to do. Now, this is a happy problem. This is a very good problem for the United States. It's distributed, good jobs, good pay, retrainable, so you can take someone contextually that wasn't doing it and you can retrain them into it. This is a wonderful problem to have. So we need to get ahead of that, and battery raw materials will take care of the rest. Auto manufacturers and companies like ChargePoint will take care of the rest. We just need to make sure that we don't stall in that 5 to 10 year from now band when things are really going vertical on volumes. That's the thing I worry about, because you fall off a cliff really fast when you run out of labor or parts.
Great, thank you. Papia, let's just very briefly, you touched on aviation fuel and kind of where we are in terms of that being the largest source of emissions for United. Help us understand kind of the, in that sort of 5 to 10 year horizon that, Pasquale and also Rao are looking at, where are we in terms of what needs to be done, what really needs to happen, and, are you looking to Washington for that? Are you looking to Sacramento? Where's kind of the North Star on that?
Thank you. So definitely at the federal level in the Inflation Reduction Act, we were able to preserve the SAF tax credit. So that's great. And then, here in California, we actually had a bill that we tried to run to help support the production of SAF, but it was vetoed for a variety of reasons.
And SAF, I'm assuming, sustainable aviation.
Yes,
fuel.
SAF is sustainable aviation
for
fuel.
those of us, yes.
And so, when you look at what CARB is doing or has done in the past in various spaces like solar, that's what we want to do. And similarly with LCFS, low carbon fuel standards, with biodiesel, we really need to look at a tax credit type or some sort of an incentive based for that infrastructure investment. CARB is looking at doing that by the end of the decade. That's not soon enough. You don't need to mandate the airlines to use SAF. We are one of the only airlines that currently use it today out of LAX and SFO. We have a SAF blend that we utilize out of our LA operation, World Energy. That's a partner of ours. So how do we get more of it? That's the goal. And what is SAF, right? It's a lot of those talons and oils and biofuels used in diesel. But today, the way the economics work, it's better off to make biodiesel than it is to make the jet fuel that we need, the sustainable aviation fuel. So we have some work to do. I see some friends from the state that, we've talked to folks and want to continue that conversation, but we got to make it happen sooner. I think that's the way to come to fruition on this, to meet these goals that we have by 2035 and 2050.
That's great, thanks. And Rao, let's make sure we catch you, and then I'll turn to Tim and see if we can make sure to at least get 1 or 2 questions from the audience. I think just something that's very top of mind right now is, we've all been spending a lot of time at home. Things are starting to open up, but some version of work from home seems likely in our future. And I know View is in the process of scaling your residential business. What's the right way to think about sustainability and, our home use as well, right? We know that the companies are making a lot of investments, but what does that mean for a renter or a homeowner?
Yeah, so when you think about both the infrastructure of buildings as well as our own life as humans, on the building side, they consume about 40% of our energy, almost 70% of our electricity, so they're incredibly consequential. And sometimes our homes have a bigger carbon footprint than our offices per capita basis. So clearly the same kind of things apply on energy efficiency and power generation with solar on the roof if you want to get to net zero. So most people here probably have solar on their roof. And then it's about lighting, where you reduce all the heat that came from the incandescent bulbs into LED in more efficient ways. At some point, you have to deal with the envelope. The windows and the walls bring in heat or not, and so you got to manage that effectively. So a smart window clearly makes a big difference there. On the health side, we're an outdoor species. We're not supposed to be indoors. And shelter, by definition, is a disconnecting event. So there comes the conflict with our life and our evolution and what's going on. This room, by the way, if we spend all day here, we will go crazy. And that's not just a thing. It's real, and we're not made for indoors. And so when you're indoors, we're really lucky that we discovered this material called glass. As a material scientist, I think it's magical. It's a wall you can see through, and yet we've been covering them up with blinds. We turned it into a wall again. And it's funny, like we were installed in Google's new Manhattan headquarters, and they were going to go ahead with the regular glass, and then obviously they intersected and put smart windows in. They have 400 linear feet of the west side views of the river, the longest or widest sunset in New York, I'm told, this $2 billion building. They would be praying for cloudy days so they don't have to lose their view. Think about that, because the sun would be hitting that side of the building. So it's ridiculous what we've been doing, but as we learn more about our own biology, our physiology, our biochemistry, and our psychology, we're finding that exposure to natural light is important, breathing good air is important. The pandemic taught us that. Acoustics in an office environment, and of course, thermal comfort. If your body's fighting, trying to maintain skin temperature, you don't have any cognitive, power left. And so comfort matters. So I think exposure to light, certainly in our homes from a sustainability point of view, all the things you already see, the products are available, now available with rebates in many cases from the utility or directly from the manufacturer. Basically, every building should be sustainable for us to get to the point of net zero.
Great, thank you. Well, I know we are at time, so we're gonna probably wrap it up there. But I think we heard some really interesting themes around, the exciting work that the private sector is really the tip of the spear. Obviously, the financial investments that are coming from state and local governments are critical to help kind of keep building that momentum, making sure that we're not leaving any communities behind. But it's really exciting, and thank you all for sharing your perspectives about how some of these leading industries are really helping us to keep up that momentum and create a more sustainable future. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Nadia Anderson, Racial Justice and Equity Lead for SVLG. Pledge 25 by 25 is an initiative led by SVLG in partnership with the Bay Area Council that challenges Silicon Valley and Bay Area corporations to increase diversity in business leadership. Pledgees commit to substantive steps to help increase representation with a focus on data collection, education, and funding, and receive support from SVLG staff. We want to take this opportunity to showcase one of our members in the energy and sustainability space, Sunpower, for setting an exceptional example by creating opportunities for increased diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Hi, I'm Maribel Bostic, and I'm the Senior Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at Sunpower. Ensuring we have a diverse workforce is a top priority for us at Sunpower. And that's why it was so easy to make the decision to pledge 25 by 25 with Silicon Valley Leadership Group. Sunpower is a leading solar, storage, and energy services provider in North America. Our mission is to change the way the world is powered. Not only are we committed to ensuring we have a diverse workforce, but also to have a culture of inclusion and belonging. We do this through a number of ways. We started with a learning journey in 2021 that included our executives, managers, and all employees. This featured a series of workshops that included the foundations of an inclusive environment. We recently added resources to create a workforce development program at Sunpower. With it, we're exploring pathways to solar careers focused on underrepresented communities. We're doing this through apprenticeships, community colleges, and historically Black colleges and universities. Not only are we focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion within our workforce, but this work extends beyond us as well, in our community and in the businesses that we work with. The reality is we have to make solar affordable and accessible for all people. Recently, we launched Sunpower's own 25 by 25 initiative, and my associate Lena can tell you all about it.
Hi, I'm Lena Williams, and I'm the Program Manager for the Sunpower 25 by 25 initiative. Adoption of renewable energy like solar and storage is critical for our environment. It's critical for energy reliability and affordability, and also for building the American economy. But we must ensure that this technology is available for all Americans, regardless of their zip code. Our 25 by 25 initiative is a collection of energy justice and DE&I commitments. They're designed to ensure that the benefits of distributed solar and storage benefit everyone. Our goal is to have our workforce represented by 40% women and 25% Black and Hispanic people, which we're committed to reaching by 2025. For the customers we serve, our goal is to have 25% of our U.S. residential customers come from disadvantaged communities. For the businesses we work with, our goal is to have 25% of our dealers and subcontractors represented by women and people of color. That is why we are proud to sign on with Silicon Valley Leadership Group's Pledge 25 by 25. We're delighted that so many of our important goals align. This work is critical, and we've already made progress towards these commitments, all while changing the way the world is powered as we approach 2025.
As we continue to grow this initiative, we're looking to onboard more member companies. Please visit pledge25by25.org for more information.
SVLG's annual forum, presented by Amazon, would like to thank our Innovators sponsors: Bank of America, Deloitte, PG&E, United, and Western Digital. Thank you from SVLG. Please welcome to the stage Peter Leroux-Munoz, General Counsel and Senior Vice President, Technology and Innovation for SVLG.
It's my pleasure to welcome our next speaker and our next program segment. All of us know Amazon, but few know about the magic that happens at Lab 126. Many of Amazon's most popular innovations, including the Amazon Kindle, the Fire TV, and Fire Stick, and the Amazon Echo, are the result of the tireless work that takes place at Lab 126 in Sunnyvale here in Silicon Valley. I'm excited to introduce the man who helps foster that innovation. Ken Washington is Vice President of Consumer Robotics at Amazon, and he's here to discuss the nature of creativity and design and how Amazon and Silicon Valley turn blue sky thinking into the products of the future. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Ken Washington to the stage.
Thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. It's really a pleasure to be here. I would like to start by sharing with you a little bit about my background and my journey to Amazon. I joined Amazon a little over a year ago, but my journey to Amazon began when, because I'm an engineer by training, that's probably not a surprise to you, but I began my career as a practicing nuclear engineer, doing all kinds of various technical jobs for a national laboratory called Sandia Labs. And ultimately, I became their chief information officer. I then went to Lockheed Martin, where I was asked to be their first chief privacy officer. Then I moved to their space systems group, and I ran their space research lab and designed rockets and payloads for space and satellites. Then I went to Ford Motor Company, where I was the chief technology officer, building the next generation of vehicles, and it warmed my heart to hear all the dialogue about electric vehicles because we worked on that when I was there. So I'm sharing all this with you because there's something all of these roles have in common. They all involved complex technological challenges. They all involved solving really hard problems, and they all involved dealing with autonomous systems and putting the products that we created and built in and around and with people. So they had to be done with an eye toward privacy and security. That was perfect training ground for me to come to Amazon when I heard that they wanted to build a home robot that would be invited into people's homes to help give them peace of mind, to be companions, to be a delightful member of their family with their kids and their pets. So I came to Amazon to help bring that vision to reality. And late last year, we launched Astro, our first home robot. Astro is intuitive, it's proactive, it's intelligent, and it's personalized. These attributes make up what we call ambient intelligence at Amazon. Ambient intelligence is a way for technology to be in service of people, not the other way around. Let me double down on that a bit. When I say it's intuitive, think about products like the Echo Alexa device. You just plug it in and you talk to it. There's no manual, you don't have to figure it out, it just works. When I say proactive, I think about my Ring doorbell. I can be in my office or watching a movie, and if someone comes to my front door, it tells me that they're there. I don't have to watch my porch waiting to see if someone comes. And it's personalized. My Astro robot greets me by name in the morning when it sees me. More importantly, it greets my wife by her name, and it reminds her how beautiful she is. Ambient intelligence is there when you need it or want it, and it fades into the background and disappears when you don't. This is truly magical. But let me take a step back and trace the steps back to where did this all begin? It all began right here in the heart of Silicon Valley with the creation of Amazon's Lab 126. It started when a group of leaders at Amazon, including Jeff Bezos, asked the question, should we reimagine how people experience reading books? A Silicon Valley veteran by the name of Greg Zur, who, by the way, was the man who recruited and hired me into the company, was given this challenge. He built the team, and Lab 126 was born. And a little bit of Lab 126 trivia. The 1 in Lab 126 represents the A in our logo, with the little arrow going to Z, and the Z, the 26 represents the Z. I didn't know that either before I joined the company. So Greg and the Kindle team set out to create a device that was so integrated with the service of delivering on behalf of the people, its customers, the ability to read books seamlessly anywhere. They set out to do this so well that when it launched in 2007 with 90,000 ebooks, it sold out in 5.5 hours. They clearly hit the mark. We didn't stop there. We've continued to innovate, again, leveraging the Silicon Valley ecosystem that we've heard so much about today already. Those innovations have led to some other amazing products that many of us, probably all of us, have used on a regular basis. Devices like the Alexa Echo devices. I personally have 13 of them in my home. I know that sounds ridiculous, but I'm going to talk a little bit about that later. Fire tablets, Fire TVs. We've even reimagined the Kindle with our recent announcement of the Kindle Scribe, where you can not only read with the Kindle, you can now also take notes on it. And you take notes with a pencil, a digital pencil, doesn't take batteries, you don't have to figure out how to use it, you use it just like you would a pen. So again, this notion of the technology not getting in the way, in fact, it's not even there, it just works. And of course, the Amazon Astro robot is the latest innovation that we've recently announced that embodies this notion of ambient intelligence. So how do we go about inventing, and how does this work at Lab 126? I want to talk about that a bit. So Kindle and Astro and Fire TVs, all of these devices that we provide for our customers all have one really important attribute in common, and that is we start with the customer need or want, and we work backwards from there to invent in answering two simple questions. The first is, does anything like what these customers want or need exist? And secondly, if we build it, Will it matter, and will it serve their want or need? We asked that question when we went about building our first home robot, just like we do when we go about building any new device. I want to give you an example of that by talking about my smart home. I already told you I have 13 Echo devices, but I also have smart sensors, smart lights. I even have window blinds that go up and down automatically when I walk into my office. When I walk into a room, the lights come on. When I walk out of the room, the lights go off. When I close my garage door, the garage light goes off. I mean, I could go on and on. This is a real passion of mine. But most people don't have that. And why is that? I mean, it's because it requires a lot of effort to make all this happen. Our goal at Amazon is to bring this kind of frictionless ambient intelligence experience to all of our customers. It's very early days, but we're well on our way. So how did we start with Astro the Robot? I want to double click on that a bit because it's a good example of how we service our customers by solving hard problems. As was said earlier today when some of the other speakers were talking, technology is often available long before it's been commoditized or made available in a way that scales. And the same is true for robotics. Robotics have been around for decades, but no one had figured out how to put one together in a package that could be invited into your home and that would work intelligently and proactively at a consumer price point that would work for any home condition under all lighting conditions. So we had to solve lots of hard problems to make that happen. But all of those hard problems were solved with an eye toward what would service our customers. And most importantly, how can we do this in a way that people would trust to invite it into their home and that we would earn and keep that trust? We took a privacy by design approach, just like we do with all of our devices in Lab 126. My experience as a chief privacy officer taught me the importance of offering customers choice, ensuring their trust, and being transparent. We do that with all of our devices. A few examples of how we did that with our Astro Robot is that all of the vision processing and all of the navigation calculations and artificial intelligence computations are done on device and are not sent back to the cloud. We have a privacy button, just like we have on all of our Echo devices that we build in Lab 126 here in Silicon Valley, so that the cameras and the microphones and the motors are disabled if you push that button. You can define out-of-bounds zones, so the robot won't go where you don't want it to go. And there are many others, but in the interest of time, I'll move on. Look, the bottom line here is that the devices we build at Lab 126 are only possible because we've created this lab here in Silicon Valley, and we've created the right environment, and we've used our formula of working backwards from the customer's needs and wants, and we've done that in a way that services customers, not driving it from the technology first point of view, working backwards like we do with everything. Ambient intelligence, we believe, is the future of smart homes. We believe it's the future of devices and how people get value from those devices in their homes. By having these kinds of capabilities, we can make people's lives better. We can make them more secure. The breakout feature for Amazon's Astro Robot is home monitoring. My Astro Robot is monitoring my home as we speak because I'm not there. And so if I was not giving this speech, I could pull out my smartphone and take a look at my environment in my home. And only my smartphone can do that because of the privacy control we built into the system. So these are the features of ambient intelligence that we think is going to create the future of the tomorrow that will make our lives better. But it's very early days. There's a lot of work that we need to do, and thankfully we're here in the exact right place, which is Silicon Valley, a place like no other where we can innovate and create products like Astro, Fire TVs, Kindle Scribes, and so on and so forth. It's very early days of this new paradigm of ambient intelligence. I like to think of it as the next inflection in computing. The first one was computers that filled the entire rooms. Then they got smaller and we typed on keyboards and had monitors in front of us. Then we introduced graphical user interfaces and mice and screen pointers to interact with the computers. Then we added voice, so you could talk to your computer. And in some cases, we even added gestures. This next revolution, this next new paradigm is we're just going to do it for you when you need it and when you want it. It's going to fade into the background. It'll be invisible. It'll just be there. It'll make your life better. Not everyone has a smart home as connected and as electrified as mine, but one day you will, because this is still day one. Thank you very much.
And now for some Q&A with Ken Washington. Please welcome back Peter Leroux Munoz, SVP of Tech and Innovation for SVLG.
Ken, thank you for that presentation there. You covered a lot of ground. And, one thing I want to ask you about is someone who's really been kind of at the forefront of robotics in people's lives and homes. What do you see that's coming on the horizon in this field?
So this field is very early. So probably the biggest thing that's coming is the world of artificial intelligence that powers smart homes is just going through all kinds of development and revolution. So we now can move from very transactional interactions that we have with systems like Alexa and Astro robots to more conversational, where it will remember the last thing you talked to it about. It'll have understanding and awareness of the environment. We just announced a new feature where Astro can identify the location and state of doors and windows. And so it can come and tell you you left the door open. That's just the beginning. In the future, it'll be able to help you determine whether you left the stove on, or whether the refrigerator has been left open, or someone is tripped and fell and they need help. So and these are revolutions that are just now starting to become realistic, and I think it's going to drive the future of how we use devices in our home and even in our cars and pretty much everywhere.
That's a very comprehensive approach to technology and innovation. Again, cars, homes, our lives. How does Amazon see itself as part of the Silicon Valley ecosystem?
So as I was saying in my opening remarks, we've been here for many years, so since the beginning of the Kindle. And that's just one dimension of how we're in Silicon Valley. We also have a large presence from our AWS community. It's actually right next door. Our AWS Cloud Computing Group is right next door. But it's bigger than just having employees develop technology and work on systems in Silicon Valley. We have to be part of the Valley and contribute to the ecosystem as well. So we have this leadership principle at Amazon where we say that success and scale brings broad responsibility. And so we're servicing that leadership principle here in Silicon Valley by sponsoring programs that will support those who want to become entrepreneurs. And one of the programs that I want to talk about is a program that we call AWS Impact Accelerator for women founders, where we're contributing up to $225,000 for 225 founders, women founders. And this is part of a larger initiative where we're committing up to $30 million to help to contribute into the Silicon Valley ecosystem. This program is going to really help people who want to create businesses here in the Valley, and Amazon is part of that, and it's important to us to participate in that way in the Valley. In fact, I understand that two of the recipients of this program that I just spoke about might even be in the room today. So if they are, I'd love to acknowledge you and say congratulations. Songka Vu from Alta Tools and Ashima Sharma from Dreamy. So.
Ken, that's great. And really one of the things that I was struck about your presentation was speaking to putting the customer and the consumer first. A lot of companies oftentimes will, again, kind of push that tech forward, as you mentioned, without being responsive to the consumer. How has Amazon been able to keep that front and center in all of the innovation work that you do?
So it's one of our leadership principles, and it's sort of ingrained in our leadership approach. So one of the things that we do is we teach that for all of our leaders, so that it's just how we innovate. And our products are always in service of people. When we started our Astro product, we started with that question. What would we think in 5 to 10 years, are people going to want to have robots in their home? And the answer to that was absolutely yes. And so then we asked the second question was, well, is anybody building one, and can you get one? And if we built it, would it help people in their lives? And the answer was absolutely yes. So we got to work. And that same story could be told over and over again for all of the products that we design and develop. It starts with that question of what would be in service of people's needs, and then after we develop the solution, we pay attention and we obsess over how customers use those products. And if they tell us that they want to have additional features, we focus on those additional features. And sometimes we don't get it right, and so we have to stop. And that's okay too, because innovation is hard, and innovation and technology, sometimes you have to take a risk. And when you take a risk, the key is to pay attention to the customers and see how do they use it. Is it helping them live better lives? And if it does, then keep going. And if it doesn't, pivot and do something different.
And Ken, I really love that idea too about being responsive and listening to consumers and being thoughtful about how we receive feedback. I'd like to just ask, over the course of your varied career, you've done a lot in a lot of different areas. Are there any particular professional lessons that you've kind of learned, some may be good, some may be kind of the hard way, that you've put into practice and you said, you know what, I'm going to take this lesson with me and it's going to influence the rest of my career? Has there been any example like that?
Well, how much time do you have?
Well, we've got about 3 minutes left, so I'll let you be selective.
Okay. Look, I have had the real pleasure of working in lots of different industries and with lots of different teams. And one of the things I've taken away from every single job that I've worked in is the power of diversity is real. I mean, it's real. This is not just, corporate speak. It really matters. And so when you bring new ideas and different perspectives of thought, especially when you're trying to solve hard problems that have never been solved before, that's the only way you can look at a hard problem from multiple angles and bring fresh ideas and challenge those ideas and come to better solutions. And so the power of diversity is something that every time I've moved to a new role, I've gotten more and more conviction about that. And so I would also add that because I have so much conviction in the importance of that, it's not going to just happen naturally. Mm-hmm. Leaders have to step up to create the right environment for diverse teams to form and thrive. And so you have to engage in the community, you have to participate and give back and serve as role models and challenge the system when you see that it's not creating the right environment for a diverse team to create and thrive and be successful. So I have a lot of passion for that topic.
That's terrific. Ken, you spoke earlier about Amazon's role in the larger Silicon Valley ecosystem. What's one thing about Silicon Valley at this moment right now that really gives you hope for the future?
So some of the earlier speakers sort of stole my thunder, but I'll repeat it because it's so important, which is it's the way people think in the Valley. The Valley is a special place, and there are many places that have tried to replicate the Silicon Valley ecosystem, but it's super hard. It's hard because there's so many ingredients that have come together in this one special place. Companies like Amazon and our colleague tech companies, some of the world's best universities, the venture capital community. But the one that gives me the most hope is you put those three things together and you add on top of that people that just have this entrepreneurial spirit where, you know, they're just not willing to always say no. You know, they'll look at a problem, and if you don't get the right answer, or you get no you get no the first time, well, you ask the second question, well, what if I did it this way? Mm-hmm. And what if I did it that way? That drives innovation. This is the kind of spirit that led us to create products like we create in Lab 126, like the Kindle and like the Fire tablets and the Fire TVs and Alexa devices. And look, when Alexa was first put out, it didn't do 90%, maybe more. It did very little of what it does today. It didn't have a smart home integration capability. It didn't have there's no screen version. Those came about because of the curious mindset of the innovators at Lab 126, listening to customers and then feeding that curiosity and the customer insights back into the product. And that happens in Silicon Valley just very naturally, and that's why we're here.
Ken, I couldn't have said it any better to wrap it up. I mean, that's why we are here with such a diverse group of people in this room, leaders, thinkers, innovators. And Ken, you've certainly been one of those examples for all of us. So thank you all. Let's give Ken a big hand for his participation today. Ken, thank you so much. That was great. Really appreciate it.
SVLG's annual forum presented by Amazon would like to thank our Accelerator sponsors: Apple, AT&T, Blue Shield of California, IBM, Intuit, Intuitive Surgical, Microsoft, PwC, Regional Medical Center, the San Francisco 49ers, SAP, Southwest, and Verizon. Thank you from SVLG.
Hi, I'm Sonu Ratra, co-founder of Acraya and founder of Women Back to Work and the chairwoman of the Silicon Valley Leadership Group Foundation Board. I invite all of you to sign up for the upcoming 18th annual Applied Materials Silicon Valley Turkey Trot on Thanksgiving Day. The Turkey Trot raises funds for 4 charities: Second Harvest of Silicon Valley and Santa Cruz, the Healthier Kids Foundation, and the Health Trust. This year's race is in person. And as we work in a virtual and hybrid world, the Turkey Trot offers an opportunity for companies to bring employees, your teams, and their families and your own loved ones together in a meaningful way, while of course having fun and burning those calories you are going to eat on Thanksgiving Day. Join the Fittest Firm competition, the costume contest, or the Kids Fun Run. There is something for everyone. So I hope you sign up soon. Thank you, and I look forward to seeing you all there.
Technology that's intuitive, that's proactive, and that's personalized. You'll see these characteristics of ambient intelligence working across all of our devices and services. Meet Kindle Scribe, the first Kindle you can write on. And I tell you, the best Kindle we've ever built.
Introducing Halo Rise is a first-of-its-kind bedside sleep tracker, wake-up light, and smart alarm.
Our most powerful Echo Dot lineup yet. With Eero built in, we added Eero True Mesh technology.
Let me introduce you to the all-new Fire TV Omniq QLED series. So we added the all-new ambient experience that brings together contextual awareness, useful information, and elegant artwork.
Soon, Astro will be able to detect cats and dogs too.
The Fire TV experience that customers know and love is coming soon to the new and existing Echo Show 15 customers.
The majority of the devices that you will see today will ship worldwide in new paper-based device packaging, which will be 100% recyclable in the United States. Thank you so much for tuning in, and stay well.
Please welcome Siva Sivaram, President of Technology and Strategy at Western Digital and member of the Executive Board at SVLG, to present this year's Spirit of Silicon Valley Award.
Hello all, my name is Siva Sivaram. I'm the President of Western Digital. Earlier outside I was talking with our newly elected California Assemblywoman Dianne Feinstein, and she was asking me, what or who is Western Digital? Glad you asked. Western Digital is the second largest employer in San Jose. We run fabs in both Fremont and in San Jose. Most importantly, about 40% of the world's data sits in one of the Western Digital devices. 40% of the world's data. Meaning, if you took a picture today and posted it on Instagram, half your face, the better looking profile is on a Western Digital device. So I'm also a member of the executive board at SVLG. We are very proud to support today's event. I'm here today to introduce the Spirit of Silicon Valley Award. Each year, SVLG has selected the recipient of this award based on 3 pillars: impeccable ethics, business excellence, and community engagement. We have honored the most pioneering leaders in the Valley across business, civic life, and technology. This year, we are truly honored to recognize United States Senator Dianne Feinstein. Senator Feinstein has been a trailblazer for the 40+ years of service to the Bay Area, the state of California, and of course, our nation. And we can think of no one more fitting or deserving to receive the award this year. Senator Feinstein was unable to be with us today. She has recorded a special message for everyone, which we'll now play. Thank you.
I'm sorry I can't join you in person to accept the Spirit of Silicon Valley Lifetime Achievement Award, but I want you to know it's a real honor to be recognized with this award by a group that I've had the privilege of working with throughout my career, and that's been a few years. For nearly 50 years, the Silicon Valley Leadership Group promoted policies that benefit not just the tech industry, but the entire Bay Area. So, together, we've worked to build a more equitable, prosperous, and sustainable future for our state. The leadership group has played a key role in developing a number of important policies. We've worked together on affordable housing, STEM education, and workforce development. And I'm proud to say that Congress passed major legislation on climate change and infrastructure this year. And your advocacy and support helped pave the way. And thanks to your leadership, we also recently got the CHIPS Act signed into law. This landmark bill will invest billions of dollars in the United States semiconductor industry, and that's a boon for California's innovation economy. I'm grateful for your hard work on so many issues that affect our lives every day. And I'm also proud that the selection of your new CEO is someone I know very well. I relied on Ahmad's counsel when he worked in my office, and I'm very fond of him, and I am confident that he will build upon the Silicon Valley Leadership Group's legacy of excellence. So thank you for this Lifetime Achievement Award, and I look forward to our continued partnership in the years to come.
Please give a warm welcome to the stage for SVLG CEO Ahmad Thomas.
Senator Feinstein has been a champion for the innovation economy, and I'm just so truly grateful to call her a mentor. She's been a wonderful influence in my life. And we have a member of her team who's here in the audience, Sarah Crowe. Sarah, where are you? I want to make sure we recognize you. A round of applause for Sarah. All right, so I'm the one standing between us and the cocktail hour, so I need to be brief, succinct to the point here. So a few remarks here in closing. We're gathered today at a pivotal moment for the innovation economy and our region. Silicon Valley continues to be the global home of the visionaries and companies harnessing the power of innovation. But as the innovation economy has matured, so too has the expectations around our accountability as business leaders. Our region is also reckoning with the value proposition that's increasingly vulnerable to mounting economic headwinds, inclusion and belonging gaps, geopolitics, climate impacts, and the shifting dynamics of a post-pandemic workforce. It's time for a new chapter for SVLG, one that reflects this unique moment and the set of challenges and opportunities ahead for the Valley. One that regrounds the organization in our foundational mission, bringing together the leading Silicon Valley companies and their executives to chart a more inclusive and sustainable future for the innovation economy. And so over the last 2 years, we've been working to transform SVLG to meet this moment, to establish ourselves as the nation's most effective and dynamic business association representing the innovation economy. Our vision of leadership embodies accountability, equity, inclusion, and environmental stewardship, as well as an entrepreneurial approach to both our public and private investments. On the public policy front, we continue to drive a robust legislative and regulatory agenda. As you heard earlier, we had a successful year in Sacramento and Washington, D.C., prioritizing market-moving legislation and investments in clean technologies and climate change mitigation, affordable housing, workforce development, business tax policy, sustainable infrastructure, and of course, new frontiers like autonomous vehicles. But policy is just one facet of the new SVLG. We're also working to transform the face of business leadership and promote a more diverse and inclusive working environment for the Valley and beyond. Advancing a bold DEI agenda is more than just the right thing to do. In my view, it's a business imperative. We'll have a chance to focus on this work and the important work that remains to be done in greater detail at our upcoming Diversity Summit in December. And we've realized successes for you and on your behalf, but we're only just getting started. I understand that change can be unsettling for some, but change we must. And over the coming weeks, you'll be hearing more from me and from our team members about how we're modernizing our membership value proposition to create greater resiliency in our business model and afford the resources to actually drive the change you all want us to represent. And at the end of the day, we remain committed to doing everything we can to better serve all of you, our incredible SVLG members. So thank you to our board chair, Jed York, all of our board members in attendance. I'm truly grateful for the continued support. A huge shout out to our title sponsor, Amazon. I know we've got several of the Amazon executives here in the room. Thank you all for your support and for joining us today. And with that, we'll end the program. We'll head out to the courtyard for drinks and networking. Thank you once again.
Thank you, everyone, for being a part of the programming portion of Annual Forum. Now, please make your way to the courtyard for drinks and appetizers. Before we go, a thank you to our entire events team. Job well done, folks. See you outside. Thank you.